Come with me to the exciting world of rice dishes. This cookbook, The Exciting World of Rice Dishes, was published in 1959, and it is a minute rice cookbook. So it showcases dishes from around the world. You can see they have some illustrations of people in, I don't know if these are what you would consider authentic traditional outfits, probably in 1959, sure. But yeah, I thought this was kind of a fun one. It's one of my little teeny tiny booklets. A lot of times these booklets are very surprising in the number of recipes they have and how good the recipes are. So let's see if this one holds up. Kicking things off with a classic, we're going with some minute rice meatballs. Look at this little jaunty gentleman right there, huh? Minute rice is a good way to take an expensive ingredient and stretch it. So you're using something that's less expensive to make your more expensive ingredients, like your meats, go a little bit farther. So these are really simple. And when I say simple, I mean very simply seasoned as well. And you know how I like to say, sometimes in the past they season things a little differently, putting it nicely, meaning sometimes they don't season things very much at all. This has got some pretty basic stuff. Salt, pepper, grated onion. We're using plain tomato sauce, so I'm interested to see how this turns out. I have 12 ounces of ground beef in here. I'm using 80-20. That's just what they had on sale at the store. It says combine the minute rice and the ground beef. I have 2/3 of a cup of minute rice here that I measured out. 1/3 of a cup of water. My grated onion, this is a teaspoon of grated onion. I was very tempted to just throw in some dehydrated minced onion. I think that would work just fine as well, or some onion powder. I happen to have some fresh onion in my fridge. And the salt and pepper. So 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt here, and it just says a dash of pepper. That salt and pepper is going to be doing some heavy lifting. So this is just the meat mixture. We're going to start with a spatula, but if you know me, you probably know I'll end up using my hands. I already don't like this. I just feel like I cannot get in there and mix it well without using my hands. So I'm going to just go wash my hands real quick. I love washing my hands in our little half bath because I have this delightful rosemary mint hand soap in there from Stem, which is a local business I really, really enjoy. I've talked about them here before. You know what? I'll link them. I'll link them in the description down below if you want some spa-like soap scents. It's just like wonderful to smell that when you wash your hands. Anyway, I'm gonna mix this. Enough soap talk here. I'm trying to be kind of gentle. Usually, you know, if you're making something like meatballs, you don't want to go too rough with it, I guess. Okay, that didn't take very long. I've got everything nicely mixed here. I patted the mixture into the bottom of the bowl because I think it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to divide into meatballs. I have a little tray here that I have a baking mat on because after I shape the meatballs, I'm gonna refrigerate them for a few minutes. Sometimes that like helps keep things together a little bit. Yes, I still have the spatula I didn't use to mix. I'm gonna like divide this into fourths, and then each quarter of that mixture is going to be 3 meatballs. It says we're shaping this into 12 small meatballs. Let's get going here. I'm not gonna be too precious with this. I just kind of wanted to get a little bit close just for the sake of like the cooking instructions and the times and stuff. It says small. These are kind of like, I would say pretty decent sized. Just making sure. Yes, 12. Yes, 12. They're not like the tiny meatballs you make for like Italian wedding soup or anything. I think these are just pretty like normal sized. Okay, I'm gonna keep shaping and I'll be right back. As you can see, I've moved over to the stove and I have my meatballs here at the ready. The recipe says start with either a skillet or a saucepan. I chose a saucepan, but you do want a pan, whatever you choose, to have a well-fitting lid because you have to cover this tightly. Place meatballs in skillet or saucepan, which, okay. I was gonna get all fancy and get tongs. You know, my hands have been all over these. My clean hands have already been all over these. I think if I put these in here with tongs, they would just get squished up. And no, we're not browning these first either. This is not that kind of meatball. Just moving around, making room. That's what we need to do, is just make room for each other. Like a big pan of meatballs. We have 2 more ingredients, and that's just some water and some plain tomato sauce. I have them separate. It says to add them separately. I feel like adding them together, like mixing the little 8-ounce can of tomato sauce into the water, is gonna work better. So that's what I'm gonna do. It just seems like this will be, like combining them will just make for like a better cooking situation. I don't wanna stir anything while I've got the meatballs in there. I don't wanna break anything up. You know, I love to keep these little 8-ounce cans of tomato sauce on hand for very specific things. Sometimes that's all you need, just a little tomato sauce. So I'm gonna pour this over the top. Cover tightly and simmer 10 minutes. Well, will you look at that? I think we just made some porcupine meatballs. I made porcupine meatballs a really long time ago. A very, very early video on my channel. These are a lot more successful. You know, I found some things out after I made that other recipe that I did, of course, differently for this one because this is a different recipe. And this worked out so much better. I simmered them covered for 10 minutes. You saw me take the cover off. After that, I took their temperature. I wanted to make sure they were fully cooked after 10 minutes and safe to eat, and they were. And then I let them sit for 5 minutes as directed in the recipe. I'm gonna cut one of these in half. These are, they say small meatballs. They're pretty generously sized. Also, the texture is very nice. I just cut that in half with my fork. Let's give it a try. Yeah, honestly pretty tasty for as little seasoning as there was that like went in there. I was pretty generous with the cracked pepper, so I do taste a lot of that. Yeah, these are nice and savory. You could serve them alongside some vegetables or, you know, some mashed potatoes or something. I know there's already rice in there, but I don't know. Oh yeah, now I really taste the pepper. Seriously, very good. You could season them up more if you wanted to, but they do taste pretty good this way. I thought they were easier, I don't know, easier than regular meatballs that I've made before because you didn't have to brown them separately or anything. It really didn't take that long either, and they fully cooked in about 10 minutes. Already back over at the stove to make some onion pilaf. So this could be a really good side dish for just about anything if you like rice. I have 3 cups of boiling water here, and I need to add a package, 1 envelope of onion soup mix, which I just bought this today. I don't buy this very often, but I needed it for this recipe and another recipe that I'm making for my next video. Ooh, spoiler alert. But I opened the box, and am I remembering this wrong? That you used to get 3 envelopes? Maybe I am, because like I said, I don't buy it often, but it only comes with 2, which is fine. For some reason, I just thought you used to get 3. So I need to stir the onion soup mix in here. Let's get something to stir with. Oniony. I'm gonna just take the heat down a bit. It says I need to cover this and let it cook for about 10 minutes. All right, I took the heat down just a little bit. And there's our boiled onion soup mix. What's next? It says add minute rice, salt, and pepper. So I have 1 1/3 cups of minute rice in here. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Well, that didn't all come out. 1 sec. And we're gonna do a dash of pepper. Mix to just moisten the rice. Okay. And then once I mix this, I have to bring this to a boil again. You can see I made a little bit of a mess on the stovetop. But what else is new? All right, we'll let that come to a boil. And now I need to turn the heat off now that it's boiling. Put the lid back on and time it for 5 minutes. I want to tell you, I did let this cook for about 3 extra minutes because I just wasn't like really happy with the water absorption, but it looks all right now. So I just need to add some parsley. It says a tablespoon of fresh parsley. Do you think I have fresh parsley? I don't. So we're using dried. I probably did about a teaspoon, and that's all there is. Now, something about the smell of this cooking was just very nostalgic for me. I think it's the onion soup smell. I don't know. My grandma used like bouillon cubes and stuff a lot in some of her cooking, and I think that's what it reminded me of. But anyway, I'm gonna dish some of this up and give it a taste. What a nice little side dish we have here, huh? It's just, you know, some flavored rice, but of course it would go well with maybe some chicken, or if you're doing like some kebabs on the grill or something and you want to serve it alongside some rice, this would be a good one to do. And the thing I said about bouillon, I mean, yeah, you could probably do something like this with chicken bouillon or what have you, and it would taste really good. Speaking of taste. Nice and oniony. The parsley was a nice surprise. I don't expect much from dried parsley most of the time, but it was really, yeah, really good bite there. Let me have another one. Yeah, so just a really good, simple little side dish of rice to go with whatever you're serving as your main meal. All right, I have one final recipe, and I have chosen this Hawaiian Supper. And something that I notice a lot, especially in vintage cookbooks, is that if something has pineapple in it, especially a savory dish, it'll be Hawaiian something or other. Yeah, I mean, this is like ham, pineapple, green peppers, etc. It's like a sweet and sour kind of sauce, it looks like. Something about the way this recipe is written, though, I've had to read it a few times just to make sure I have all of my ingredients in check and I know what I'm doing. So let's see if I can accomplish this one. Having read so many recipes from so many different decades, the way that they are written varies a lot, and it really depends on who's writing it, how they've written it, whether or not it's easy to, to get through and to understand. As you can see, I have a tablespoon of butter melting because I'm cutting the recipe in half. That butter looks like a shooting star. Now that my butter is all melted, I have to add my ham. 1 cup plus a couple of tablespoons of slivered ham. And then I have my diced green pepper. Now in the photograph, it does look like they've used more of a ham steak for their ham. You're just supposed to use slivered ham. I went with deli ham, mostly because I'm more likely to use the rest of it in that form. So use whatever you like. Use leftover ham, whatever. And then the green pepper is from my freezer. It's like I'm getting to the end of the peppers that I grew last summer. I just need to saute this for a couple of minutes until it starts to brown. So my ham is over here. I wanted to direct your attention to this. This is pineapple juice that I got from a can that I drained, because there's pineapple chunks in this recipe a little bit later. So it says to combine the liquid, meaning the pineapple juice. If you don't have enough, you can add water to it. The vinegar, this is 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. Brown sugar, this is a tablespoon of brown sugar. I'm gonna start mixing so that I can dissolve that. Because at one point we're gonna add cornstarch, and I wanna make sure everything else is kind of mixed in there. I have 1/4 teaspoon of dry mustard and 1/4 teaspoon of salt as well. Let's give this a stir. See if I need to reduce. Yeah, I better reduce the heat on that while I'm doing this. But it did get nice and frizzled, which is a word that I see in other vintage cookbooks that I quite like. I need a dash of pepper. I'll do that. And cornstarch. So I have a tablespoon of cornstarch here. Add that. You can see my ham has nicely browned in places. I kind of like that this deli ham got even a little bit crispy in some spots. I think that will make for a very pleasant experience. So now I need to add my liquid, the one that we just kind of like mixed together. I took the heat down a little bit too. Cook and stir until the sauce is thickened and transparent. So let's bring the heat back a little. Yeah, it's already starting to thicken. What I really smell here is the mustard and the vinegar. Yeah, as it's like warming up. Yeah, look how thick that got. Combine hot water, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and the pepper. So we've got a little more salt that goes in. Scallions or chives. So I have a tablespoon of green onions. Oh, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about how I resprout my green onions, because people have asked, I've mentioned it several times. And then I've got my minute rice here. So I'm just gonna like combine all of that in here. See, like the way this is put together is kind of like unusual, I guess. A little bit hard to film, if I'm honest. So I also need to add, before I add any more liquid, I need to add my pineapple chunks. I just used canned pineapple and juice. So let's get that in there. I like ham and pineapple together. If you don't, that's fine. You're allowed. I don't know, I like the sweet and the salty. Okay, so I've added that, and I'm making like kind of a well. I don't think this is gonna look the way that it does in the book. So basically they want you to like make this well and put the like rice mixture in the middle. It's not gonna stay like that. That is funny. Okay. And of course I need to cover this, and I didn't grab the right lid. So one moment while I rummage. Hello? So I gotta bring this to a boil, which is like happening right now. So now I need to cover this and let it simmer for about 5 minutes, it says. We'll see what the rice looks like at the end of 5 minutes, and I'll kind of update you. You know, I think I got close here. Like about as close as I'm gonna make it. It's, of course, they've got like food stylists and everything. I see what they were trying to do. They wanted to serve this very attractively in hopes that this person's friends and family would be very impressed. It smells very good. I did end up just cooking it for that 5 minutes. I wasn't sure if it was gonna work, but it did. The rice got just to the right consistency, soft, you know. I have to break up this little party though so that I can serve myself a little bit and try it. I'll probably just like, you know, I'm gonna have to store some of this. I'm just gonna mix it together probably at that point. So I cut the recipe in half. This was, the full recipe's 4 servings. This is 2. Nice size servings, I would say. I'm excited. I like a sweet and sour dish. I feel like this is a good combination of flavors too, with the pepper and the scallions and all of that. All right. This is my kind of thing. For sure. I would probably make it a little bit spicy. Maybe put some chili flakes or something. I don't know. I would like a little bit more, even just pepper, I think. But the flavor is really good. The vinegar, the mustard, and then the sweetness from the pineapple juice mixes together super well. It does kind of remind me of the trip we took to Maui in December, early December. I had some like a Hawaiian style breakfast that was like Spam with fried rice and an egg and scallions, and kind of reminds me of that a little bit. I feel like you could almost substitute Spam in here and it would work really well. I like the texture of the deli ham. The thin, sort of slivered, sliced ham, for me, works really perfectly. You might like it with a little bit like bigger, thicker pieces. The green pepper. Yeah, I'm like super happy with how this turned out actually. Even if the recipe, like, I guess it's very subjective how you interpret, like reading the recipe. It just, something about like how it was put together just felt like I had to read it and make sure I was doing it right. I mean, I read all the recipes, but I had to go through this one a few more times. It seems like I am forever filming during dramatic weather episodes lately. I just got a notification on my phone that we are expecting a severe thunderstorm. So let's see if anything interesting happens while I'm doing this. Exciting World of Rice Dishes was published in 1959. Let's get you focusing so you can see. This is such a cute booklet. I want to make sure you see both sides, the front and the back here, because look, it's so colorful. Love the photographs of the food. The illustrations are just so cute. So Minute Rice, what is it? Let's talk about it. Minute Rice is a brand name, actually. So Minute Rice is a brand name for instant rice. Did I use Minute Rice for these recipes? Maybe I used the store brand. So instant rice cooks in about 5 minutes. It's pre-cooked, it's rinsed, and it's dehydrated. So that's what speeds up the cooking time. I love sharing this information with you all because I learned about this in like middle school home ec, and I'm like, yeah, I remember. I remember those days. That is what instant rice is. And there may be any number of reasons why you're gonna use it. Maybe you just need something really fast. And maybe if you have a rice cooker, you're used to cooking just like regular rice, or I usually do it on the stove in a pan. But I do like to keep a little bit of instant rice or minute rice in my pantry. Or maybe someone gave you a box and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. Well, here, I just gave you 3 ideas. Minute Rice was launched by General Foods in the 1940s. And I love that you can see the old General Foods logo right there. And General Foods emerged with Kraft in the 1990s. So Minute Rice as a brand name has gone through multiple, companies since then. Ooh. I better go. Okay, sorry about that. Our trash can just like blew out into the street and tipped over, and I didn't want trash blowing everywhere. Anyway, we're talking rice. So let's take a little look inside this cookbook. I can't get over how cute it is. I showed you the logo. Wanted to show you some of the illustrations. I might actually stand for this. There's my Hawaiian dinner that I made. I talked about this guy right here. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be French because this is like jambalaya. So like French Cajun. A few more right here. And then we get into the casseroles and salad section. I love that green dress. Green is my favorite color. I particularly like this Pick the Pantry recipe right here. It's kind of like a formula for a build your own casserole. couple more things. This booklet is so small that I can flip through like pretty much the whole thing for you. And also there's no page numbers, by the way, which I don't love. I don't always love a book without page numbers, but this is fine. I also particularly like this add variety section. It's just like a lot of things you can do to sort of doctor up rice as a side dish, things you can add to it, ways that you can use it that maybe you haven't thought about. And desserts, yes, rice desserts, rice pudding, glorified rice. I have made glorified rice here on the channel. I thought about making it again, but I feel like I've made it maybe at least twice, or a version of it. And then just a little section that's singing the praises of minute rice. And we get some very nice product packaging here too. Let me get that to focus. And we talk about the different package sizes available at the time. So the exciting world of rice dishes probably was pretty exciting for 1959. I feel like, you know, maybe these recipes aren't 100% accurate or authentic or whatever, but back at this time, if you were a cook who was trying stuff like this, you were probably viewed as like adventurous. Wow, they're really going after it. They're really trying some things out. As for the recipes, I thought these three were pretty great. I started with minute rice meatballs, and these were porcupine meatballs, which I've made on the channel before. The ones that was like such an early video, oh my gosh. Those were put together a little differently and they didn't work out as well. Part of it was because those, like that version, I got from a community cookbook, and you were to brown the meatballs before you cook them, and that kind of caused the rice not to like poke out the way that it should for a porcupine meatball. This version was even more flavorful than I expected. There wasn't a lot to it, and I even said, like, you can season this up differently. I'm seasoning it as it states in the cookbook, but during this time, a lot of things weren't like as heavily seasoned as maybe we make them now. We're avoiding a lot of sounds today. I moved up to my office to do this in hopes that maybe it would be a little quieter, but it's just not happening. Whatever, I'm thankful for my city services, like picking up trash and stuff. I liked this because it was super quick to put together too. You know, you mixed everything together, and then I thought mixing the tomato sauce and the water was kind of the way to go, so then you didn't have to try to mix them together after you added the meatballs to the saucepan. I thought maybe this could be potentially fun/kid friendly too, because it's not as heavily seasoned, maybe the flavors will be somewhat familiar, and it's fun to tell your kids that we're having porcupine meatballs for dinner. I checked out the modern recipe for minute rice meatballs on the Minute Rice website, which I can link in the description below if you want to see what that's like. That one has more ingredients though. I liked that this one doesn't have quite as much, because I'm always like all about a recipe where maybe you can make something super delicious with very few ingredients. And this is also the type of recipe where you're stretching your most expensive ingredient, which is the meat, you know, the ground beef. You can make that food budget go a little bit farther, right? I reheated a couple of these today as like a pre-snack for the dish that I cooked, my last recipe, because my lunch was gonna be quite late and I was feeling a little hungry. These reheated beautifully. They tasted really good. Almost, I would say they might even be better the second day. Some recipes are just like that, right? The second recipe I chose was onion pilaf. And this was just like a nice little side dish, right? A nice little rice side dish. When you want something that's not plain rice, you want it to be a little bit flavored. Now, as this was cooking, it just had such a nostalgic scent to me. And I think it's those like savory, kind of like steam-based cooking smells that remind me of my grandma's kitchen. My grandma used bouillon cubes pretty liberally, and onion soup mix, like onion soup powder, it's going to have like kind of a similar feel and scent and you know, that kind of thing. My grandma had 6 kids. She had to work miracles with whatever food she had to feed her family. So I thought about making like decorating a little jar or something and putting the label Louisa's secret weapon on it and then just filling it with bouillon cubes. No shade on a bouillon cube. I mean, you can add flavor with those for not a heck of a lot of money, right? But this onion pilaf, again, just a very simple savory side dish that would go really well, I feel like, with grilled meat, like grilled chicken or kebabs or something like that, and maybe some nice like roasted vegetables or grilled vegetables. My final recipe of the video was Hawaiian Supper. I loved this. Truly, it was so much better than I even expected. I've made sweet and sour dishes on the channel before. They're not always the most well received. People don't always love like pineapple mixed with something savory. I get it, like that you're allowed to think that, but you know, there's a good portion of us who do enjoy stuff like that. And this delivered exactly what I wanted. It had the saltiness and the savoriness of the ham. You had that like tangy vinegar and dry mustard, and then the sweetness of the pineapple. It just mixed together so well. And then the green pepper and the green onions added a little bit of freshness to it. And I actually brought these up. I said I would show you how I resprout my green onions, so I brought them up here to my office with me because I forgot to show you in the kitchen. And a few of you have asked about it. This is all I do right here. So I cut the green tops off and I put the root ends in just a little jar of water and put this near a sunny window, and it sprouts. Regrows the green onions. If I'm not going to use the white part, sometimes you do need to use this part for recipes, but if you're not going to and it still has the root ends, you can resprout them. Typically, I will buy a bunch of green onions and I will cut the green parts off, like the tops, and I'll dice them and put them in, like wash them, of course, dice them, put them in a bowl lined with paper towel to keep them a little bit more like dry, I guess. And I find that if I do that, I'm way more likely to use them. Because sometimes if you buy a bunch of green onions and you let them sit in your fridge, they kind of get like gross and slimy like really fast. But if you can take the time to prep them and just like do all of them at once, if that's how you're going to use them, then it works well. And you can just throw some in a dish to make it even more appealing, make it taste a little fresher, add a little delicious garnish, you know? But yeah, that's all I do. Nothing big. I change the water out every few days. And that way you get at least twice the green onions. Some people plant them in the ground. I've not tried that. If you have, let me know how it went for you. But this Hawaiian Supper, as I said, so good. I actually really liked the deli ham. I think it was kind of intended to be used with like thicker pieces, like a ham steak that you dice up. But just from the photo, that's kind of what it looked like. I used deli ham because that's what I'm more likely to have on hand anyway. I liked that that was so thin that it got a little crispy around the edges. And I thought that added just a really nice textural element to this dish. I thought I did pretty well in the presentation here. I wasn't sure that this was gonna work the way that they kind of like gave you the instructions on how to cook it, but it was perfect. It worked just fine. I thought I got pretty close, as close as I was gonna get to the appearance of the photo, which I've showed you, but like, let's look at it again. I just left mine in the skillet that I cooked it in though. So it was kind of like that. There's just maybe like a little brighter than mine. I gotta say, I'm pretty excited to eat the leftovers on this one too. I think it's gonna reheat well. So what did you think of my recipe choices? Do you have this booklet in your collection and have you made any of the recipes? I'd love to hear about that, so please leave me a comment. I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join us over there, I'll have a link in the description so that you can do that. Don't forget to look out for each other and take care of each other, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.